All right, so let's build a column navigator using Bootstrap that will allow us to navigate through a hierarchical structure, right, that has a root as a root has a list of courses, right, and that as you select one element from one of the root elements, right, it then navigates down to a hierarchical tree, right. So if you select CS5610, it shows all the modules for CS5610. If you click on a particular module, it shows the lessons. If you select a lesson, it selects different widgets. If you go a different route, click on 5200, it goes a completely different route, right? We built something similar using React Native a week ago, right? So let's see how we can build something similar using Angular. Right? So first, let's create an application, although we'll use the one we just built 2 minutes ago. I'm not going to create a brand new one. So instead, let's see installing a Bootstrap, right, to make it look pretty. So let's see if we go down. Where are we? Are we in the right place? Yes. Okay. So we're going to do npm install Bootstrap, and then what we'll do is that Bootstrap will have multiple static files, right? CSS and images and maybe a JavaScript as well. We need to copy all those assets, all those static assets. Right? We'll copy them in the right place so that they get deployed in the correct place, right? So it's done. We're going to copy those into the assets folder. Notice that our application, notice that it has source, as app, and then it has assets. See that? Assets is meant to put in there stuff that is static, right? That is not meant to be parsed, is not meant to be modified dynamically, right? Just static files. Perfect for putting libraries in there, right? So let's copy Bootstrap in there. That's not it. Oh, this is from one before. Let me close that. So we're going to move. Notice that it installed it under a directory called node_modules. Under there, it installed Bootstrap and the distribution folder, right? So we're going to copy it into source assets, right? So we're going to say, move node modules, Bootstrap, and then the distribution folder, we're going to move it into source and then the assets folder. Okay, so we moved it. And once we've moved it, we can now, from the index file, we can just reference it, right, and load the Bootstrap library. Okay, so let's go into the index file. The index file is our entry point right here. And in here, we're going to link to that style sheet. So link, this is a style sheet, and the location is assets. Is it a Bootstrap or dist? And then CSS. And then what's in there? We have Bootstrap. Okay, so let's say Bootstrap. There we go. Okay. All right. Excellent. So let's close that. Notice that it's already looking prettier, right? Already has a nicer semblance, right? It has a nicer font, and we can start styling a couple things there. All right. So let's keep going. Well, now that we have Bootstrap, let's hit some of the RESTful services that we already have from previous assignments, right? For instance, the list of courses. We already have an HTTP web service endpoint that can return a list of courses, right? So let's focus on this first half over here. All right. So to do that, there's a very quick review that there is an entity that stores the courses. That there's a repository, right, a CRUD repository to be able to retrieve these things, and that there's a service pointed at this endpoint, right, /API/courses, which just returns all the courses. Yes, right? We already know that. you should already have that working, right? And that's what that's the endpoint that I'm going to try to hit, okay? And if we hit it, this is what it would return. So it would look something like this, right? If we hit it and we go to localhost 8080, we have API courses. It returns a JSON object with all those courses. Yes, right. And that's the API we're going to try and hit. All right. So what we're going to do is that first we're going to create a component, right? Where we're going to host all our work, and we'll call it. So here's where we're going to host all data access, right? If you remember, we did this also in React, right? We created a singleton, right? And in that singleton, we hosted all data access in there. That's a good design pattern, right? The singleton design pattern, the service design pattern. So let's create the same thing here. We'll create a class, and we're going to put all our data access in there, and we'll call it the Course Navigator Services. So let's, if we go in here and under app. We're going to put all our services under a directory called services. So services. In that service, we'll create our TS file, TypeScript, and this will be course navigator service client. Actually, no, let's use the naming convention I mentioned earlier. Right? So this will be course Navigator. So this is the feature we're trying to build, Navigator. Its role is that it's a service, right? And it's this is a client artifact, right? It's running on the client, and it's a TypeScript. And yes, we want it in Git. So there it is, right? So in here we're going to just create a class. It'll be the Course Navigator Service Client. And then here's where we're going to put all our data access. So for instance, all fetch, right, our put, our post, our gets, our deletes are all going to be here. Okay? So we're going to, what do we want to do? We want to do a find all courses. Right? So in here we want to implement how to retrieve all those courses. So it would be something like fetch. It would take as argument, we're going to go to HTTP / localhost 8080 API / course, right? This is going to return a response, a raw response, which we want to parse out the JSON from the body. So we're going to say then, so this is the response. And we're going to return the response.json. Right, and finally we're going to break out of there the course. Did I go that far? I forget. Did I go that far? Okay, no, this is just going to return that. Okay, yeah, it's going to just return that. So we parsed it out, and we're going to return this. This returns a promise, right? Whoever wants to look at this is going to have to use a then, right, to retrieve the data that is coming from the server, right? And that's it. That's all we need to do. This will become a singleton in its own module, right? And we want to inject it into wherever we want to use this. Okay? All right. So where do we want to use it? Well, we want to use it. Okay, so first of all, since this is a data provider, right? It's fetching data. And also, we want to be able to inject it in multiple places. Whoever wants to use this, we would like to be able to use inversion of control to inject it into your constructor. So to do that, we need to declare it as a provider back in app modules. All right, so let's go to app modules and declare that. So in app modules, we'll declare in providers, we'll declare the what was it called? A Course Navigator Service. There it is. Right. So we declare there. Notice that it automatically imported it, and I'm declaring it as a data provider. Now that it's being declared, I can use it anywhere I want. In this particular case, we're going to use a component, right? That's going to use this service to go and fetch data and then render it in a view. Right? So let's create a component that can consume this RESTful data. Right? So let's generate a, we'll call it the course navigator. Right? That's an appropriate name. So let's, at the command line, we can, let's see, where are we? We're in the right place. We can say ng generate component called course navigator. Again, it'll create those 4 files for us, right? And it should be there. There's our course navigator. And right now, it just has as a template, it just says a course navigator works, right? So it's not very interesting. But what we could do is that in our component, instead of showing our hello world, right, we can just render that. We can say app.course navigator. There's our course navigator. So if we render it, notice that we're there, right? We're at the course navigator. It just displays course navigator. Right? We can perhaps we can change it a little bit so that the HTML is a little bit more interesting. Maybe it just says H1 course navigator. There it is, right? Maybe put it inside of a div with a content fluid. So this is a class container fluid. So it adds a little bit of padding all around. All right, excellent. So let's see. What do we want to do? We want to hit that service, right? So we already have the navigator. We have the component. We're going to inject now that RESTful service. We're going to inject it in our constructor. We're going to ask for it, right? We're going to say, hey, I want a variable that has that type and is going to be passed into me by the framework, right? Using inversion of control, it's going to instantiate it for me. It'll be a singleton, and it's going to pass it to me. Locally, I can refer to it by the name service, right? I can refer to it anywhere in my component by saying this.service, and then I can invoke any function I have in there. In particular, find all courses. Yes, right? So in my component, my brand new component we just created, right? This one, we can inject that. We can say this is a private service of type course navigator component. No, that's not it. What is it? Course service client. There it is. Okay. This is annoying me. Quote mark. Where is that? Quote mark. There's my lint file. And go away. Okay, fine. All right, so we have the service. Right, we have the service. We want to hit that service and get all the courses and then render it in the template. Yes? All right, so let's do that. So a good place to do that is the init function, the ng init function. This is where the component gets initialized. Right? There's a perfect place to look for stuff right when I'm about to render. So I'm going to declare a local variable, courses, which is going to be just an empty array for now. Right? And that variable, just because I'm declaring it, is immediately available in the template for rendering. Right? Oh, sorry, equal an empty array. So in the template, I could actually say, I can say, how many are there? It's courses.length, right? And notice that it says 0. I don't have any. Right? I don't have any, so it's empty. It's an empty array, right? Okay, so let's go fetch some data here. We can say this dot service. There's my service. Oops. Dot find all courses, right? And in my, I get a promise, which presumably is going to come back with courses. right? That's going to be what comes back from the server, parsed out from the body. And internally, locally, we just want to copy those courses into our local courses. Yes? Right? So now notice that it says 7. Right? It went out, right? It fetched the courses, right? On the initialization of the component, it says, oh, you have 7 courses. So what we would like to be able to do is just render those courses, right? So for instance, what we'd like to be able to do, for instance, in the component, is that we can perhaps do a UL, yes? Perhaps style it a little bit. So classes might be a list group. And then a line item, maybe we can style this as well. This will be a list group item. And internally here, we like to display the course titles. Yes. So we could copy and paste this over and over using the for iterator, ng4, and we can iterate over each course in courses. Right. And here we can then render here the course.title. And what is it complaining about? I'm sorry? Of, thank you, of. Okay. And now notice that it renders all the courses that were coming from the database, right? Obviously, you can make this a little prettier. Perhaps we could put a title in front of this at the top, maybe the first LI. Maybe the first LI could say courses, right? And this could be a class list item group. Right, so it lists courses at the top, and we can maybe highlight it by adding here that is active. Right, it just highlights it with dark blue. Right. Now to prepare this to have multiple columns, we can use Bootstrap for this, where this is just the first of multiple columns. Right. So for instance, we can this UL could be just one of multiple columns. Yes. So we can build that using just Bootstrap rows and columns. Right. We can say, div, and this could be the rows, right? This could be class row, and this could have multiple columns. We can have one column. This would be a column. So we want maybe 4 columns. So each column would have to be of size 3. 3 times 4 is 12, right? So this would be of size 3. Yes, right? And here we would have our courses. Here we would have our modules. Here we would have our lessons. And here we would have our widgets, right? It rendered like that, right? But we actually want the lists. So we can perhaps, instead of just courses here, we can just copy this entire UL and just drop it in here. So yeah, so that would be the first of several columns, right? That we would go fetch. Right, and we have similar for modules, lessons, and whatnot. Yes, it would look something like this, right? It would be if you copy this again and drop it in here. Notice that it would render twice, right? One for each. The courses gets rendered twice. Okay. So yeah. So the next thing would be that we want to fetch modules for a given course. Right. So let's take a look at that. So for instance, in the service client, perhaps we want to go find something like find all modules for course, and it takes as argument maybe a course ID. Yes, right. And this might be so it would be fetching course for a particular course ID. Yes, and I want the modules. Yes. Right, and that returns that. And in my component, I can listen for a click for a particular course. Yes, right. So that in here, right next to each one of these, this LI, each one of these LIs, I can make them clickable. Right? I can say click. Right, so each LI, I'm binding a click event on each LI. And I want to notify a function such as maybe select course. and I can pass as argument the course ID. Yes? Right? So that in the component, I can listen for that incoming click. So this will be something like select course, and it takes as argument the course ID. And we can alert just to see that it works, right? We can say alert course ID. Right, so if we click on this, it says 1, there's 1, right? If I click on this one, it'll be 4. See that? So that what I would do here is then what? Go and fetch the modules for that, right? We can say this dot service dot find all modules for the course ID. Yes? Right? And we can say then when it comes back, presumably these are modules, right? So this is modules. And we can bind it to a local this.modules equal modules. Okay? And we can declare a modules array here, right? That is an empty array for now. But it binds it to that array, right? And that array we can use in the view, right? So in the view here where we're rendering this would be what? This would be let module module in modules, and this would be module title, and this would be modules, right? Yes? Right, so if we go back here, if we click on 5610, it says 1, and it renders the modules for 1. Let's remove that alert, this alert from the select course. Right, and notice that now if I click on that course, it returns the module for that course or modules for that other course, right? And it just re-renders. As long as the data changes, it triggers the DOM to be re-rendered, right? It's not nearly as efficient as React. React is very, very powerful at making sure that it's not causing an unwanted re-rendering of the DOM, right? Whereas perhaps Angular is a little more eager to re-render the DOM to make sure that whatever, if anything happens to its data model, it's reflected immediately in the DOM. So there it is. So we did work on the first two, right? The other two, lessons and widgets, is verbatim the same thing, right? You need fetchers for each one of those, right? You need 2 more arrays, right? You need 2 more event handlers, right? For each one, and that I'll leave for you to work on.